Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Jeff Lipsius, who is the president of Selling to the Point. Welcome to the program, Jeff.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. I see you have some great guests on, so I feel honored to be such good company.
Well, that's excellent. And you know what? Sometimes having just a conversation about a topic spurs and stimulates a thought that maybe each one of us individually might not have thought of. So that's why I love these kind of mastermind format interviews, because we're drawing from business and life experience that each one of us have, and who knows what we can come up with. So let's just jump right in and kind of give us a brief intro to you and yourself and your firm, and then tell us what you focus on in your business.
Well, I'm a sales training coach. I actually invented a new sales training approach called Selling to the Point, originally derived out of my mindfulness meditation practice, but it goes to the selling and buying process from an entirely different angle. So when I talk to salespeople, what I do is like to expand their thinking into an entire new direction of looking at selling and buying. And I notice, Mike, we're talking about authority selling, so we're talking about being an authority. And what I do is, instead of talking about me and my achievements, what I tell salespeople to do is start talking about all the other customers they helped. So our authority is what we could do for other people, because if we could do things for other people and help elevate their success, that's why people want to talk to us, not because of what we did for ourselves. And the reason I'm saying this is because one of the most important rules of selling that is frequently overlooked is that the goal of selling isn't selling. The goal of selling is buying. So I'll just really elaborate on this because it has huge implications. If you're a salesperson and you're going on an appointment to close a deal and you got your pitch down and your presentation ready and you sent the customer literature and you get to the door, but before you can say anything, the customer answers the door and says, "Oh, yeah, I saw that literature. I want to buy the product. Where do I sign?" You're not going to do your sales pitch.
Right, because you could talk yourself out of the sale.
Oh, you could do a million things. You could make the sale sound so complicated that you could lose you could lose the customer's attention span. All kinds of problems can occur. So you just tell the customer where to sign. Because you achieved your goal, the customer bought. Selling is beside the point. Selling, like you said, could actually mess things up. So the goal of selling is buying, and that means the customer's buying performance is more important than the salesperson's selling performance. And traditional sales training is always talking about the salesperson's selling performance. And what I do is I train salespeople to help customers experience a better buying performance, because a salesperson could say everything right and still not get the sale because of something going on with their customer's decision process that the salesperson has nothing to do with. And how do you influence that? And how do you coach customers to make better decisions and higher quality decisions? So I teach salespeople the art of decision coaching, which gets back to my original point that we're really authorities when we can tell people how we helped others and what we've done for others.
Well, you said a mouthful there, and we could probably talk for about 4.5 hours on just those points. But two things that pop out at me is it made me think of, I phrase it this way, and you described it the way you just did, but I phrase it that a salesperson needs to become an educator and an advocate for the success of their prospects and customers, because they can feel your pushiness, salespersonness. But if you become an educator and an advocate, you're coming alongside, kind of like, in essence, putting your arm around the shoulders of your prospect, going, now look, here's some things to consider, and you mentioned this, and have you thought and here's a couple things that I wouldn't go down this path on. Now all of a sudden you are being perceived as a trusted advisor because of that approach, and it's kind of like the Bob Burg go-giver mindset of giving value, right? So that plays right in with what you said. And then the second piece is, with that authority, you're having your authority that way, is the line we don't want to cross is becoming prideful and arrogant and conceited, so that is a big, big piece in our mindset and our approach, because so many times we can come off as haughty, and that's not going to be, perceived nicely. And arrogance is when you want to selfishly put yourself above others to benefit only yourself. And authority gives you the courage to unselfishly launch yourself forward so that you can serve others with your gift. So I think that just plays so well into what you were just mentioning there. Any thoughts along that line as well?
Well, yeah, what I would add, educating, that's a big umbrella. What's important, though, is for salespeople to be the learners rather than the teachers.
Ooh, I like that.
When we say educating, we have a wealth of information, but we're only going to be able to help customers with the information we have that the customers are going to be receptive to hearing about. So what we need to do, otherwise we have an intervention, not a sale.
Yep.
So what we have to do is be the learner and learn the customer's language and learn their priorities and learn their beliefs and learn their values so that we can respond to what we've just observed.
Have you ever heard of the concept of buckets?
Buckets, no.
Kind of like in demographics or psychographics in your target audience, what bucket would they fit in? Are they male, are they female, are they an engineer, are they whatever? We have to listen for that so we know how to educate the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, we do, because customers are really in a decision process. You could look at it that in every sale, there's actually two conversations going on in the same time, not just one. There's the conversation we're having with our customer. We can call that conversation A. But there's also a conversation B, which is the customer's internal buying conversation between their ears. And we are not privy to conversation B, but it can affect our success, or does affect our success more than any other conversation. What the customer's thinking is very important. So what we need to do is observe in conversation B, ask questions, find out what's important for them, and in terms of the buckets, learn their language and learn what they're going to be receptive to hearing about by learning as much about their inner talk as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's a huge piece, because I feel like you would agree with this. So many of us as salespeople, or people trying to communicate and do business with another party, we're listening to someone, and while we're listening, we're thinking about our next response, and we're not really, listening fully, and we definitely can't tap into that inner, kind of struggle or inner voice that they might be, feeling, and because we're trying to make our next point. So how would you recommend kind of tapping into that inner conflict that our prospects may be feeling while we're kind of, presenting?
Well, first thing is what you're describing is the salesperson being distracted. Mm-hmm. When we're thinking of the next thing that we want to say, we're going to be distracted from hearing what the customer is actually conveying to us, because the customer is going through this decision process, like I said, and their objective, I think to answer your question, the first thing for the salesperson to do is understand that the customer's objective is to make the best decision. So if the salesperson looks at the customer's objections, playing devil's advocate, doing research as a part of the customer's normal decision-making process, so in the end they could feel best about the decision they're making, and the salesperson can join that and actually be a teammate with the customer to help that customer make the best decision. Now, if a customer knows you, the salesperson, are there to help them make the best decision, you have a team. You have agreement. Yep. You don't have any friction going on between you and the customer. And then the salesperson can start paying attention to the customer's decision process, because there's no hidden agendas in terms of the customer. The more the customer conveys to the salesperson, the more the salesperson can help them. The salesperson begins to pay attention and gets focused and gets intrigued with everything the customer is saying and striving for. This calms the salesperson's mind down, and they get more clear as the salesperson gets more focused. You could say the customer could be the salesperson's mantra. And, just like a Zen meditation exercise, watching and noticing and observing the customer's decision process with true interest and intrigue, in fact, gets the salesperson focused and less distracted by thoughts like, what's the next thing I'm going to say?
Or, I got to make my house payment. I hope I make this sale.
Yeah, that's distracting. That's totally going to take the salesperson away from the quality of the interaction that they're having with the customer.
Yeah, that's huge. Hey, what have you seen in the selling environment in the last few years change, and where do you see it going in the next few years with respect to anything, approaches, mindset, technology? What are some things that you're seeing going on in the industry?
Well, now with the digital age, customers, the role of salespeople have changed because the needs of customers have changed. Customers don't need salespeople to give them product information so much anymore. They can get it from the internet. As far as purchasing goes, your products can be purchased from the internet. But at the same time, customers now complain about having too many choices, and it's too confusing. And I don't know if you try to talk to customers lately, but they're awfully distracted. They've got tweets coming in, and they've got Instagrams and LinkedIn instant messages. People want their attention in all different directions. It's really hard for customers to get their arms around their priorities. And this is where a salesperson can really help with being a decision coach to help the customer wade through these decision-making processes that they have to go through that are so difficult now in the digital age because people are so distracted. That's the major change I've seen, that customers really expect now a certain level of decision coaching ability in the salespeople they talk to. And those are the most helpful salespeople these days.
I have a feeling that you would agree with this statement, because it made me think of this while you were saying that. Digital and tools and technology is wonderful, but there's two huge downfalls in that. Number one, we tend to rely on it too much and hide behind it. And secondly, it does distract us so much, and it keeps us on some amped up mission so that we're not taking the time to be mindful and listen while the person's talking, so that we know how we can help educate them in what they need to make their decisions, right? So I think technology is wonderful, but it needs to be looked at as icing on the cake. Right? It needs to be, hey, I used email to reconnect with this person after we had coffee together, or I retweeted one of their posts because we just had a great talk on the phone and they tweeted this nice article. It should not be the sole focus, and that's the problem that salespeople are having, is they feel like they're just out there doing it, but they're just hanging out on social media too much and nothing's getting done.
Yeah, well, where the rubber meets the road is in the decision maker itself. Every sale is going to involve a human decision maker, and you could have all the data in the world pointing to, this company, these people should be making the decision to buy the product. But when you actually get in there, there could be all kinds of reasons why on paper the data would show that this would be a great prospective customer. But when you talk to the people, you get something different, and you have to know how to deal with the people, because in the end, it's going to be people making the decisions, not the data.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that we just need a big word, the B word, balance. We need to be balanced in a lot of things, life, personal finances, all of that. But in our approaches, we need to have that balanced approach. And I teach marketing strategy for 3 universities. And one of the terms that I teach, it's just a marketing phrase called IMC, Integrated Marketing Communications. And it means your brand message needs to be congruent across all channels and have a variety of channels. Because if all I ever did was email people, they can hit delete, spam, unsubscribe. But if I had an email one time here and a Facebook here and a Twitter there and a handwritten letter there and a phone call there, now all of a sudden they're feeling like, they're being engaged in a way that is balanced, and I think that keeps it fresh. So in our sales approaches, we have to do the same thing, right? I mean, what do you find where people are focusing too much on one sales approach where they need to have more balance?
Oh, yeah. Like you're saying, in marketing, of course, there's always learning. You always compare one marketing approach with the other and see which one's more effective. And that's why you do multiple channels, because you're looking to see which one the particular customer tends to respond most to. And so we're learning all the time how to communicate with people. How's the best way to communicate with customers that's really going to resonate? And salespeople have to be willing to modify. Even if it's the middle of a conversation, we may end up saying things that were completely different than what we planned. Or we may think that LinkedIn would be the perfect way to contact this person because they work in LinkedIn or something.
Yeah.
But that's our assumption, how we think that these people should operate. And if we're open to learn, we'll find that for some reason, maybe because this individual is more of an auditory learner, that they do better with webinars, or maybe they're more visual. They do better with Instagram. I mean, you have individual differences that we as salespeople need to learn in order to speak the customer's language. And as a matter of fact, in my book, I wrote it in the form of a fiction story.
Oh, I love it.
Because the language of salespeople is dialogue. It's conversation. So for me to speak a salesperson's language to get this system of selling across, I created a fiction novel so the principles would emerge out of dialogues between the various customers, because it's in dialogue that salespeople do the learning. And so for me to teach salespeople something, I did it in the form of dialogue.
I love that, and some of my favorite books are those, fictional stories that make a business application, because people's mind tends to engage a little bit better in a story, and facts tell, but stories sell. So I love that a lot. So speaking of your book, let's wrap up with telling our listeners what's the best way they can reach out to you, buy your book, learn more about your book as well.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to any of your listeners. I have a system that has actually helped salespeople do the very things I was describing today in terms of decision coaching. It's a whole decision coaching system. It's talked about in my book, which is called Selling to the Point, which is available on Amazon and Kindle. But also, somebody can reach me and talk to me. I'd be glad to have a conversation with them. My email address is jeffrey.lipsius@gmail.com. And get in touch with me, or my website, which is www.sellingtothepoint.com. And we could pick up the conversation with any of your listeners where we left off today on the show.
Super. Well, Jeff, it was really wonderful getting to know you. Had a great, fun chat, and wish you all the best. And thank you for taking time out of your day for the interview.
Yes, Mike, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.